Hey guys, I know it's been a while, but it's finally time to talk about Ape Escape 3. Took me some time to get the footage, but it's all recorded, so without further ado, let's talk about Ape Escape 3. Ape Escape 2 didn't impress me very much. It added gadgets, but it didn't feel like they were very exciting to use. The Ape Escape series needed something new, something different, and Ape Escape 3 delivers. But first of all, let's talk about the story. It all begins with the main protagonists, Kei and Yumi, arriving at the lab of their aunt, Aki. They're contacted by Natalie and made aware that the monkeys, that's right, the same monkeys from the previous Ape Escapes, are at it again, causing havoc. They started broadcasting strange television shows, which are so stupid. They're lulling people into laziness and unable to move. Now, you may ask, why is Natalie going to Yumi and Kei, two characters we've never heard of, when she could just go to Spike or, Jimmy, I guess. But mostly Spike. Well, the sad truth is, the Professor, Jimmy, and Spike, I have no idea where Jake is, he just vanished I guess, have all been affected by the strange television broadcasts. And so there's nothing they can do but sit around on the couch. So it looks like it's up to Yumi and Kei to catch these monkeys. But who could be behind this dastardly scheme? Well, who else do you think it is? The same character it was in Ape Escape 1 and 2, Spectre. But this time he's teamed up with an old lab assistant of the Professor's and Aki, a character named Tomoki, who's a human. We'll get more into that later. Now let's discuss the characters one by one. First of all, Kei, who's the character I guess most boys would choose to play as. That's right, you can choose to play as either Kei or Yumi, but there's not that much of a difference. Anyway, I don't have much to say about Kei's character. His character design looks perfectly fine, but he's not that interesting. I'm no fan of Jimmy, but at least he had the whole dumb thing going for him. Kei is just some energetic kid. We're never made that aware of what his interests are. I think he likes sports, but I'm not 100% on it. Yumi, on the other hand, is a much more fleshed out character. She's a pop star. There! That right there gives us a lot of information. It tells us what her talents are. It tells us what her interest is. It tells us that she probably has some interest in fashion, because, you know, pop stars are usually interested in looking good when they're singing. That one thing tells us a lot about her character. But they never give Kei something like that. Even at the beginning of Ape Escapes, we got a good look at Spike's character. He was really interested in what the Professor was up to. He was interested in time travel and all this scientific stuff. He didn't come across as a very scientific kid, but we saw what he was into. And at the beginning of Ape Escape 2, we see that Jimmy is a pretty positive kid, but does make mistakes and isn't that smart. See, we're seeing into their characters, we're seeing what they're like, but Kei never really gets anything like that in his game. Sorry for dwelling on that so much, let's move on to other characters. Aki, as I said, is Kei and Yumi's aunt. She's a professor and helps them by giving them new gadgets that I believe Natalie sends, but she also upgrades their morph gear, which we'll get into when I talk about gameplay. Aki, as you can clearly tell if you play the game, is definitely an optimist.
That sounds kind of fun.
No! Their shows are so stupid that anyone watching becomes a mindless couch potato!
She's just about always happy and never seems to be worried or upset by anything. I'm not sure if it's the voice actress or if it's just how she is, but she's always talking like, oh, this'll be wonderful when you use this bat to whack those monkeys. It's like, that's how she talks about everything. I actually do like her because she brings something different to the table that Natalie clearly doesn't. Natalie's just always either happy or annoyed all the time. So, those are the heroes of this game. Now, if we're going to talk about the villains, we might as well go over the rest of the story. The Freaky Monkey 5 are back, and as you progress through the game, you'll have to defeat each and every one of them. After completing a Medieval Ages studio level, you'll come across White Monkey. Once again, he's a scientific genius that uses his robots to attack for him. This time, he's built a giant robotic dragon that shoots fire and everything. Blue Monkey this time is a cowboy, or cow monkey, I should say. After you complete a Wild West level, he'll challenge you to a showdown. It starts with him riding around and you just have to shoot him, but later he brings out a chain gun. Didn't expect to see a chain gun in this game, that's for sure. Yellow Monkey returns for more sumo wrestling, though this time in a strange kabuki outfit. You capture these three, but eventually you come across Pink Monkey. She's an Arabian dancer and is trying to put on a show. You better just watch, because if you don't, she'll go all psycho and try and annihilate you. Not that you have a choice in the matter. Pink Monkey is the only one of the Freaky Monkey 5 that escapes you at first. Naturally, the final one you have to go up against, just like in Ape Escape 2, is Red Monkey, who's a martial artist. But this time he replaces his T-Rex suplex, which is once again awesome! With farting attacks. Really? Farting attacks? Okay, that's just weird. Honestly, I don't have much to say about their personalities in this game. If you played Ape Escape 2, they haven't really changed. Sure, they're in different costumes, but that doesn't mean much. Though, I will admit, they do try to talk as if they are those actual characters. Like every main Ape Escape game, not much story is shown unless it involves a boss fight. Eventually, Kei and Yumi make their way up to Tomoki and have to fight him in an epic robot battle. And spoiler alert, if you're all wondering why Tomoki is helping Spectre, given the fact that Tomoki is human, it's basically because Tomoki feels ashamed that in an experiment the Professor and Aki performed, he got a Peak Point helmet stuck on his head. That's why he's always wearing that afro. As far as Tomoki's character is concerned, he's a freaky disco dancer guy? Think Maximilian Pegasus, but less evil, and you pretty much have his character down. Having a change of heart, Tomoki decides to aid Kei and Yumi, and he launches a spaceship to discover the location of Spectre. It's in outer space! Wait a second. That's where Spectre was in Ape Escape 2. He must really love outer space. You make your way to Spectre's main space station and shut down all the satellites to end the TV broadcast. Next, you're forced to fight Spectre into what I have to admit is one of the most amazing boss fights in Ape Escape history. You're flying through space, attacking a giant robot. How much more awesome do you need it to be? Eventually it's down to just you and Spectre, mano a mano. And finally you capture him, and all of that terrible crisis is brought to a close. Or so you would think. You see, it turns out that Spectre's whole plan was to launch a giant hand in the shape of a karate chop that will chop the world in half. He believes that one half of Earth can be given to the monkeys while the other half can be given to the humans, and thus they will be living in peace. This may be his stupidest plan ever, as that would clearly just wipe out all life in existence, but clearly that helmet has driven him slightly insane. Slightly. In a brave sacrifice, Tomoki blows up the area where he is, so that the chopping's hand will stop from chopping the earth in half. Wow, that was a pretty dark twist for an Ape Escape game. Just kidding, he survives. In the credits. I don't know what I expected. It is a kid's game after all. Nobody dies in Ape Escape. Speaking of the credits, they're fun to watch. They remind me of the credits from Ape Escape 1, where you'd get to see what all the characters ended up doing after the game was over. Once the credits end, Monkey Pink appears and informs you that she's freed the Freaky Monkey 5 and Spectre, and that you have to go after them again. This is your cue to catch the rest of the monkeys in the game and get 100% completion. One thing I'm slightly disappointed at is that when you fight the Freaky Monkey 5 again, which you didn't have to do in Ape Escape 2, the boss battles play out the same way they would normally. So what was the point of that? It's not any harder, just more annoying. I also expected a special cinematic to play after catching Pink, since she was such a handful in the first battle, but no such cinematic plays. Once you've captured every single monkey, it's time to track down Spectre. There's a very humorous scene where he tricks Kei and Yumi into thinking that he's giving up. Of course, it's a trap! Yes, you're trapped in a glass jar that you can easily break with a stun club. Oh, what was the point of that again? If you manage to catch Spectre, you'll be treated to nothing. No cinematic or anything. That's odd. Oh well, I at least expected to see the credits again. But then I suppose that would just be annoying. And that's the story of Ape Escape 3. How does it fare? Well, for an Ape Escape story, it's pretty fun. Spectre's plot is ridiculous, but it's funny. And I love the idea that monkeys have taken over these television shows and are doing them their own way. It was a new direction for the series, and it was much needed. Every level is either a studio or is being shot on location. You go from the usual jungle to basically the Titanic. Bet you never thought you'd see that in Ape Escape. You also go to various kid shows, as well as your usual haunted houses. The level names are also hilarious, usually making fun of real movie titles, such as Ape Jones, Fistful of Bananas, and Fist of Furry. With your trusty monkey radar, it's not that easy to get lost, though there are a few levels where there might be a passage hidden way in the corner and you just don't see it. Not to mention, there are some pretty cheap hiding places for monkeys, like inside floating fruit. This part had me stuck for like an hour trying to figure out. I thought there was a secret passage, but it was just a monkey floating around inside a fruit that I didn't even realize you could break. But other than that, kids probably won't feel that frustrated playing this game. The level design is pretty straightforward. All you have to do is find your way around using gadgets. And that takes us to the next important part of our discussion of the gameplay. Gadgets. I'm not going to go over gadgets like the Stun Club or the Gotcha Net because, let's face it, they haven't changed. But there are a few gadgets that have changed, and one gadget was even removed from the usual roster. So let's go over to the changes to the gadgets. The slingback shooter no longer has aiming in third-person mode. Yeah, remember that? How in the original Ape Escape you'd have to, I think, click to be able to go into first-person mode, and if you didn't, Spike would do this kind of weird tilting animation? Well, that's now completely gone. The second you pull back on the slingback shooter, you're immediately sent into first-person mode. I actually like this change as it's less of a pain to hit stuff with that gadget now. Swimming has also changed. Yes, swimming counts as a gadget because you always bring out your water net when you're swimming. You can no longer travel around underwater unless you're staying just below the surface. There's no area where you have to go deep in the water, though you may have to go underwater to duck a few traps. By pressing any direction on the right analog stick, you bring out your water net, which is no longer fired as a ranged attack, but is actually just brought out in front of you. The monkey radar hasn't changed except for the fact that now in the lower right hand corner of the screen, you'll see a picture of whatever monkey you have the radar tuned into. The last thing I need to say about gadgets is that the monkeys are now capable of stealing your gotcha net. That's right, if they hit you in just the right way, they can knock the gotcha net out of you, take it, and capture you. This feature is pretty good, but I only got captured once while I was recording this footage. Of course, the game gives you a pretty good way of defending yourself, but we'll get to that awesomeness later. Okay, now let's talk about vehicles. I have to say, the vehicles are probably the weakest part of Ape Escape 3's gameplay. The tank, for example, controls the same way it did in previous games, but it feels slower to me than it did in previous games. The Pipichi robot from Ape Escape 2 has been taken and changed by Aki to make it faster and give it more abilities. The thing is, the controls are really weird. You have to tilt both analog sticks to the right to get it to jump, for example. I know this is Ape Escape, but it just feels counterintuitive to how a robot would normally be piloted in other games. The Pipichi robot was slow, but at least its attacks were easier to use than this, as you're constantly sent dashing faster than you can control yourself. They included a race car, and the best thing I can say about it is that it can never be destroyed. You can ram it against walls or against other cars as much as you want and it never blows up. And thank goodness, because this is not the easiest car to control. You move it forward by tilting the left analog stick forward, and naturally right to left by moving the left analog stick right and left. You can drift by pushing the right analog stick left and right. I'm not sure what anyone else thought of this vehicle, but I found myself swerving all over the road most of the time. Also, it just felt tedious trying to run down the monkeys in their cars. Though I have to admit, it's a pretty fun vehicle, and not anywhere near as bad as Yes, my favorite vehicle, the raft, returns again! Why have the developers not realized that this is the most boring, stupid vehicle in all of Ape Escape? It has never once been fun to pilot the raft. I hated it in Ape Escape 1, I hated it in Ape Escape 2, I hated it in Ape Escape Primed and Pumped, I hate it in this game too. Get rid of it! I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. So, yeah, I hate the raft. And that brings our discussion of vehicles to a close. Join me in part 2 where I'll cover the rest of the gameplay, as well as some extras you can get in the game. See you then.